So I'm going to go over very quickly the second section of the notes today. It's talking about fractional exponents, which we talked a little bit about at the beginning of the year, but I want to make sure that you have a good review of it quick before we start getting into some more complicated stuff. So the last section was dealing with positives, negatives, and zeros as exponents, but there's also fractions here, right? So we can have x to the a over b, so those can be any numbers, any real numbers. So if we're looking at this problem here, like x to the 1/2, that's a fraction in the exponent. And if you recall, we could change that to x to the first power, and then you're taking the square root of it. So your 1, the numerator, goes on the inside, and your 2, the denominator, goes on the outside. So that's going to be important to remember as we're moving forward with this, if they're asking you to write things without fractional exponents. When you're doing that, it doesn't matter if you do the radical sign first or if you do the exponent on the inside first, it will get you to the same result. So if we look at this example, 8 to the 3/4. Well, we're going to take that 8, and again, our numerator, that number, 4 there, is going to go on the inside. So it'll be 8 to the 4th power. The denominator, the 3, means that we are taking the third root of this, the cube root. And it doesn't matter what you do first. So if you do 8 to the 4th power, you end up getting 4096. And if you take the cube root of that, you get 16. Now, very similarly, if you do the cube root of 8 first, you get 2. And then if you do 2 to the 4th power, that gives you 16. So it doesn't matter if you do the exponent on the inside first or if you take the root first. Either way, you're going to be getting the same result. It gets you 16 both ways. So we're going to go through a couple more examples. I'm going to ask you to do one of them on your own, and we'll go over it at the beginning of class, as we usually do. So the one that I'm actually going to ask you to do on your own is problem 1 here. So please do that one on your own. We will go through 2, 3, and 4 together though. So problem 2 says, if f of x equals x to the negative 3/2, find f of 16. Now the really nice thing is that when you have the TI-83 calculators that we have, the scientific graphing calculators, you can just plug things right into that. So we're taking our 16 here, and we want to plug it in where our x is. So we're going to have 16, and making sure we use our parentheses, and then we're going to put that to the negative 3/2 power. So when you put this into your calculator, it'll look something like this. You'll push parentheses, 16, you'll close your parentheses. You'll push the little caret, you'll open a new set of parentheses, and put negative 3 divided by 2, close your parentheses, and then when you hit enter, your calculator will do all of that, and it will give you the number 0.015625. And then if you change that into a fraction, it ends up being 1 over 64. Now, if they don't ask you to round to a specific place, then you should write the whole thing. If they ask for it in fractional form, you should write it in fractional form. If they don't give you any directions, you can write either of these and still get full credit because they are equivalent forms of the same thing. For number 3 now, it's a very similar problem. They're saying if m equals 8, we want to find the value of 8m to the 0, all raised to the 2/3 power. So again, we're going to start by plugging our stuff in. So we're going to have 8 times 8 to the 0 power, all raised to the 2/3. Now you have to do a little simplifying before you can put this in your calculator here. We should know that 8 to the 0 power is going to be 1. So we have 8 times 1 on the inside to the 2/3. I'm going to come up here before I run out of room. So that ends up being just 8 to the 2/3 power. So again, when you put that in your calculator, make sure you use parentheses for your exponent or it's not going to work it out correctly. So this would be, in parentheses you'd have 8, you'd push your caret, parentheses, 2 divided by 3, And that will give you a grand total, a final answer of 4. Now, again, if you don't use these parentheses here, you're going to have a problem, because what it does is it'll say 8 to the second power, and then it'll divide that by 3. It won't do 8 to the 2/3 power. So those parentheses are extremely important in this case. And the last one, write x to the negative 3/4 power using radicals and positive integral exponents. So what that wants us to do now, it wants us to get rid of, first of all, get rid of the negative that's there, and then it wants us to use integral exponents. So it means it has to be only integers, whole numbers. So the first thing you want to do, to get rid of that negative, you need to think back from the last video about what we did. Well, if you have a negative, it means that you can take your whole thing and put it into the bottom. So we're going to have 1 over x to the 3/4 power. And now so that takes care of the negative. Then we want to find out about integral exponents. What that means is we need to switch this over to have a radical. So it's going to be 1 over, and there's going to be some kind of a radical down here. Well, we know that our x is going to be on the inside. And now we take this fractional exponent that we have, our 3 and our 4, and we need to move them over into that radical. So the thing that I always remember is that x to the 1/2 is the square root of x to the 1st power. And that reminds me that my numerator, the top, goes on the inside. So my 3 will be on the inside over here. And my denominator, the bottom, goes on the outside. So up here, my 4 would be on the outside. So now we have gotten rid of our fractional exponents, we've gotten rid of the negative, and we are good to go. So that is your final answer. 1 over the 4th root of x to the 3rd. Again, this is review from the beginning of the year, so you should have a little bit of an idea, but I wanted to make sure that you're up to speed before we move on to some more complicated stuff. So complete number 1 on your own. Have a wonderful night.